Hey friends, it's Kay. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you are new here. If you are new here, hello. My name is Kay. I'm a professional home organizer here in the Boston area, and I'm here to inspire you to live a more organized life. So today we're going to talk about maximalism. I have been thinking about this for a few months now. So maximalism is this kind of amazing aesthetic that is kind of taking the world by storm. There's also something called cluttercore, in which you decorate with a lot of, I guess, clutter. There is intentional excess of items, and it's sort of a pushback to the minimalism movement where there's all white, there is nothing out, it doesn't look like anyone lives there, there is no color anywhere. And my favorite thing about the maximalism movement, frankly, is color, because, like, hello, knick-knacks are back, tchotchkes are back, and decor and fun are back in homes. Now, I understand this isn't everyone's aesthetic, and as a professional organizer, I think the common conception is that I don't like this aesthetic and that I don't like to see clutter everywhere and that I don't really relate to maximalism. But that the truth is that this is an aesthetic that is sort of the way that I grew up. A lot of people who are professional organizers grew up in a home that was kind of cluttered, maybe even have some clutter still as an adult. And I think that a fair amount of clutter, and we'll talk about the kinds of clutter in a minute, having a little bit of that around you is actually really comforting. And studies show, actually, if you have a desk that you're working at that's a little bit cluttered, it increases your productivity. I didn't make that up. That is science. The thing is, clutter is only clutter when it's unintentional. It's like a bunch of unmade decisions. Clutter that is bad, let's call it stressy clutter, is that clutter that comes from you buying something at the Goodwill and you could, like, some candlesticks, and you don't have a use for them. You just brought them home. You're like, I don't know what to do with these. They don't have a home. They don't have anywhere to go. That they're stressing you every time you see it. That's clutter. That's the stressy clutter. Another thing is stressy clutter is like shoes you decluttered. Like they don't fit you anymore. They're uncomfortable. But you put them in the hallway to take them to the Goodwill or wherever, just put them on Poshmark, and they just sit there staring at you. They're saying, what are you going to do with me? That is stress clutter. But a bookshelf full of, like, curated, beautiful books, some tchotchkes on there, some little vases, like little collection of little tiny vases you got from some antique dealer in Maine, that is cluttercore, and that is chef's kiss. It's intentional. It brings humanity back into the space. If you've ever played The Sims 4, which if you are into, like, home organizing and decorating, I don't know why you haven't. I will legitimately turn on The Sims 4, build a house, decorate it, spend 6 hours, and then just turn off the game. Like, I won't actually play. But if you've ever built a home in Sims 4, you know that when you place the furniture down, you place the rugs down, it's fine, but it doesn't feel lived in unless there's, like, clutter that you've placed around. There's even a whole category in The Sims 4 called clutter. Minimalism can feel a little bit like the struggle Olympics. It's not. I think you can be organized and be a maximalist, and they're not, like, mutually exclusive. However, it does present some challenges in organizing, so I'm going to help you with some organizing tips so that you can keep your stuff and still find your stuff and not lose your mind while being a maximalist. So what is maximalism? According to decoratingden.com, maximalism in interior design is an aesthetic that celebrates bold colors, rich textures, and layered patterns, creating spaces that feel visually rich and lively. Unlike minimalism design, which emphasizes simplicity and restraint, maximalism embraces abundance, showing personal collections, mixing styles, and combining diverse materials to create an expressive, eclectic look. Personally, I think that is an amazing way to live, and it reflects what you love, what you admire, and what your life is like, and brings a very humanist look to your home. And you can have this look without feeling overwhelmed by clutter, the stressy clutter, just the good clutter. So my first tip is to establish the difference between the good clutter and the stressy clutter. The good clutter are things that you collect and you have with intention. We're talking about the tchotchkes that you love, the little collectibles that you love, the things that you buy with the intention of displaying them. You're proud of them, you love them, they bring you joy, they make you happy. The bad kind of clutter, the stressy clutter, are things that are unintentional or unmade decisions and that bring you stress when you see them. There is an exception in which sometimes you can see the bad kind of clutter and not be aware of it, and you have some sort of clutter blindness. That comes from being around the stressy clutter so much that you have blanked out on all the clutter to protect your poor little self from being overwhelmed. That's an entirely different problem. But if you're not there yet, you can still make the distinction between the stressy clutter and the good clutter, okay? The good clutter is stuff that's curated, collected. You want to display it. It brings you joy and happiness. You spend time caring for it. It's lovely. The bad kind of clutter, again, unmade decisions, unintentional. You meant to do something with it. You doesn't have a home. You're not quite sure where it goes. You feel guilty looking at it. That's the bad clutter. So notice the feelings associated with each of these categories. And feelings are really important when we're talking about home organization and decorating your home in general. The whole crux of organization for me is about your relationship between the item and you. If it is fractured, and if it's bad, if it's dysfunctional, you want to deal with that. But if it's good, if it's positive, if you get a lot out of it, then that's something completely different. My next tip is to be intentional where you are being maximalist. Being maximalist doesn't mean that you have 10,000 of everything, right? You can have let's say you love to collect bottle caps and display them on a wall or wherever. I don't know why I chose bottle caps, but we're going to go with that. And you are collecting bottle caps and you're just displaying them and they look really nice. You don't have to have 12,000 cups. You need to choose where to be maximalist very intentionally. And I think most people that are maximalist do this. But again, I want to make the distinction between overconsumption of items and you get overwhelmed by the amount of total items as comparison to being a very intentional maximalist and keeping the areas where you are maximalist very curated. This can even be like clothes. Like I know people that love clothes and they love to their own bodies are canvases for art, right? And they have they have big closets and they may have like a very not decorated home. They've very intentionally chosen where to be maximalist. So because you are a maximalist in one area does not mean you have to have all the things in another area. So just be very careful about where you choose to be maximalist. It doesn't have to be everywhere. It's very often not, but I'm just saying, just so we can make the distinction between like over collecting of everything and being maximalist. My next tip is that maximalism, and I would go so far to say is that like a lot of my clients who I go to help and see and help get organized are actually maximalists in some kind of way. Some of them were just very disorganized. Some of them really needed to declutter, but some really needed to curate their collection and organize it so that they can find it and figure it out. I find that most people who are maximalists really at their core are not always about decluttering, but more about rotating. I think this bleeds into my other tip, but we'll just go with it. I think that rotating is something that you will consider a little more than decluttering. Don't get me wrong, decluttering is a good thing for everyone. And going back to not being maximalist in all areas of like things that you possess in your home, you can declutter and you can rotate. Again, not mutually exclusive, but maximalist will incorporate rotating more than people who are not maximalist. Because times change, moods change, your heart changes. I knew that when I was a little kid, and you know what, sometimes still, I will be like, you know what, I'm bored. I'm gonna move furniture around and I'm gonna see what happens. Did anyone else do this as a kid? I did this as a kid so much. Like if I was bored and I had the day off from school or something and I had nothing to do, I'm like, I'm going to rearrange my entire room. And it was the most fun. That's why I play The Sims. And in saying rotation is going to be a part of your everyday existence, I think that having a limit to the amount of things that you can bring in and the amount of things that you're going to be able to rotate out, because at some point you're going to rotate some things permanently out, goes into my next tip. You need to keep in mind where you're going to put the things that you're going to rotate out. It's part of being a maximalist that you're going to have some backstock of decorations and whatever. So you're going to need to very carefully curate and plan intentionally a place where you're going to put things that you're not using. This does two things at the same time, which is so delicious. One, it organizes your actual backstock so that you can find it. It has somewhere to live when it's not out on display. It's not really being used. It's just out of rotation. And two, it actually puts a limit on how much you can store there. Now listen, I wish I could bend time and space and you could just keep acquiring things like unlimited, but you can't. So having a very set amount of space where you can store your backstock will keep you humble and keep you from buying excess stuff. So at some point, if you run out of space, some of that stuff's going to have to permanently rotate it out, if you know what I mean. Some of my favorite organizing solutions for out of season, out of rotation things are shelving. Shelving is great because you can just see everything there. You don't have to put it in a container. You can just have it out. That way you have things visually out so you can see. If you're a maximalist, it won't bother you as much. I love Alpha shelving from the Container Store. It's my favorite. It's easy to install. You can move the shelving around, so if things are taller and shorter, you can easily move a shelving up and down. Alpha makes freestanding shelving, but I don't think it's easy to get. It might be discontinued at this time. It's 2025, but I think you can still buy it like on clearance. I don't know. But freestanding shelving is great for those of you who cannot install things into your walls. Next is intermetro shelving or any kind of freestanding shelving. Again, love it. Intermetro shelving is great in particular because you can put so much weight on it and it's easy to move shelves up and down. And when you're not using it, you can completely collapse it almost completely flat. So, and if you need to add extra shelving to it, you can do that pretty easily as well. It's very, very well made. You can buy like a knockoff brand at Home Depot or some other places, but I highly recommend that you invest in the name brand Intermetro or Metro if you're willing to spend a little more money. The Metro is the kind of stuff they use at the back of restaurants to hold the pots and pans and stuff. You don't have to do that. You can get the residential version, but I highly recommend that you spring for it because the knockoffs are not as strong and not as well made, and Intermetro and makes great products. Grabbing big boxes, especially big clear boxes, is one of the best things you can do because you can see inside the box. You can't intentionally hide things from yourself if you can see inside the box. I think visual access is important for people who have a lot of items or practice maximalism because I feel like out of sight, out of mind is a real thing for people who are maximalists. I would get clear containers instead of opaque boxes just so you can see what's out. I know that clear boxes are there's a lot of visual stuff, but it's going to help you in the long run to be able to see what's in the box. Even if you label like an opaque box, fine. But when you walk past it in the basement or in the closet, you're not going to know. You're going to be like, well, I don't. Do yourself a solid and get some clear boxes. I'm a Container Store stan because I used to work there, so I highly recommend the jumbo boxes that are there, or even the watertight totes from, are they still called that? I think they're called weathertight totes now from, oh my gosh, who makes them? I forgot who makes them. I will put some B-roll here. Anyway, they are very, very good if you live in a space with a lot of humidity or you need to protect them from the elements somehow. But again, recommend clear boxes, not opaque boxes. You want if you got to have your stuff out here, you got to have it out down there too. I'm sorry. My next tip is to embrace some negative space. I tell this to everyone. I don't think that every space should have, or every surface more specifically should have something on it. I do love having things on surfaces if they're decorative, but not every surface needs something on it, and to embrace a little bit of negative space. This is really hard for people who are not maximalists and people who are maximalists and people who are just generally disorganized. I feel like this is a human thing, is they see a space and they just want to put something on it, or they see a cabinet, they just want to fill it up with stuff. You don't have to do this. Embracing some negative space is going to be good for your psyche because A, you get a space to put something if you need to put something down, and you will, you can see it, because if you need to put something down in a strange space and there's already a bunch of stuff there, it's gone. It's gone. It's lost in the sauce. But if you have an intentionally empty space and you put something down, you'll be able to find it later. You don't have to use up every space. You just don't. One of my final tips is that organizing is going to be much more fun, cheaper, and probably easier if you're a maximalist and don't care about conformity or matching things. Because let's be honest, if you go out and buy like 10 matching drawer organizers or containers for your pantry, it's going to be expensive. You're going to have to find 10 of the same shape, size, material matching perfectly, and then you're going to label them and blah, blah. I'm not going to lie, I love that. I think it looks great. And some of my favorite jobs are when I go to clients' houses and they're like, I want you to make my pantry look like Pinterest. And I'm like, I got you. And I go out and buy matching containers and decant all the things. And then afterwards it looks so neat. I love that. But if you are a maximalist, your style is eclectic anyway. And if you got a water hyacinth basket and a wooden crate and a linen box or whatever, that can be your closet organizing collection. You can probably use things you already have in your home to contain things, and you're going to love it. Drawer organizers don't fit perfectly. Who cares? I think you're going to have much more fun and be a lot more flexible about your organizing solutions when you are a maximalist and don't care about matching and stuff like that. I do think that there is some value of having some things. Now, it depends on what you really like, having some things behind either closed doors or in drawers, and being very intentional about what's going on inside of closed spaces. Because I feel like if you're a maximalist and you like to see visual excitement or like visual clutter, and you can tend to, again, be a person that is an out of sight, out of mind person. So if you're like me, I'm not gonna lie, I kind of like having some stuff out. I'm very intentional about what's going on inside my drawer when I can't see it, or inside a cabinet when I cannot see it. Because if it doesn't look nice inside, and when I open it up and it's a hot mess and stuffed full of things, I get stressed out. That's gonna give me the stressies. So I think that inside cabinets and inside drawers, you should be a little bit less relaxed. I think a little more stringent inside of closed spaces so that you can find and touch everything and get to it, take it out and put it back easily. That's going to be a win for you. And outside, you can be as visually cluttered as you want. And I want to make the distinction between being messy and being a maximalist. They are not mutually exclusive. Sometimes they can coexist, but they are not mutually exclusive. I've been into plenty of maximalist homes where they were not messy, clean, nothing was really out that wasn't intentional. It was it was beautiful. It was beautiful. In conclusion, I think that you don't have to get rid of all of your lovely possessions to be organized. I think that we've been through a very weird era of when we were like shaming people for having stuff. Even on my own YouTube channel, people are like, oh, you have so much stuff. I'm like, yeah, I do. As long as you can find something and be able to put it away after you're done with it, I think you are pretty much winning. So I don't think maximalism is about mess. I think it's about meaning. And I want to welcome you to not shame yourself for having collections, for having curated things on your walls, for having color. It is your home. It should look like you live there. It should be comfortable. And I hope that this has inspired you to either get organized or reclutter your home. All right, that's all I got.